Hey, my name is ShawNshawN. I sell art on ShawNshawN.co and I do specials on eBay. Today we're going to review Parasite. So Parasite is this Korean film by Boon Hoon Ho. 2 hours, 12 minutes, a little bit long, but there's quite a bit of story here to develop. All the actors are Korean, so Kang Ho Song is Kim Ki Taek. Ho Ski Choi is Kim Ki Woo, the poor son English tutor. The first guy is the driver, the poor father, the driver. So Dan Park is Kim Ki Jung, is the poor daughter art tutor. Yi Jung Jo is Park Yoon Kwo, the rich wife. Sung Hyun Lee is Park Dong Ik, the rich father. So you have these two families brought together. So it's basically, the start is this poor family. They fall in very bad times. The father had several failed businesses, and now they're living at the worst possible place, which is in this basement apartment with the toilet actually above the rest of the house. So it's kind of like this weird house where it's all tiled and really gross. And they're kind of eking by. They're barely getting by. The son and the daughter, they're kind of looking for ways to get ahead. And this friend of the son shows up and he's like, hey, I got this girl who needs a tutor. I want you to watch her. I don't trust anyone else. I want to date her after she grows up. So kind of this weird, like, he's going to date the daughter. So I guess once she's 18, then it's okay or something. Kind of like, eh. So she's probably 16 and the tutor was 18 or something. So anyway, you got to overlook that part. And so the guy's like, okay, I'll do it. And he's like, well, how do you think I can do it? I didn't even get into university. Like, no, you took the university exams 3 times, tried to get in. And so you've mastered English. So you're going to teach it. He's like, all right. So he's able to get the job. He gets in there and then he realizes there's this kid in the family and he also kind of draws, and he like approaches the mom and he's like, hey, does she need an art tutor? I know this really good art tutor. And she's like, oh yeah, that'd be great. So he brings his sister up and she's supposed to be his cousin or something, not related. And it's just, she becomes the art tutor. And then they're kind of scammed together. Like, how do we get our dad and our mom hired, right? Because they're jobless as well and they're barely scraping by. So they scam together to get the current driver fired. And so they're able to hire their dad, who comes from this, really good driving school or something, get her hired. And then they have the housekeeper, and they're like, oh, the mom wants to replace the housekeeper, but the housekeeper, there's nothing wrong with her. They find out she's allergic to peaches, so they sprinkle peaches all over her, and then they pretend she has tuberculosis. So this really dirty scam to get her fired. So then they're like basking in their glory, but then there's like a secret in the house that's kind of gonna pull them down, as well as they're having a hard time keeping up appearances because they all smell the same because they live in this kind of basement dwelling sewer. So this sense of like this stench is kind of coating them, even though they're trying to get ahead, but the poverty is just really pulling them down symbolically with the smell, which is hard to show on screen, but they kind of talk about it, which is all you can do, really. We don't have that 5D effect right now. So you have this really nice interplay between the rich and the poor. So the really cool analysis is, in Korean society, the mountain is kind of seen as kind of the holy origin of the aristocracy, of the royals, and all the monarchy through time. Now it's obviously a democracy, but in North Korea, they still have this kind of sense of, you have the North Korean leader, he comes from the mountains and all this stuff, the same kind of symbolism. So the house on the hill represents kind of this aristocratic order, and this bottom dwelling apartment in the basement is kind of like, the lowest scum of the earth kind of class of society within Korea. So they have this really nice symbolism. So you can see the classism within Korea of rich to poor, and as well as the, failings of this poor father who had several businesses, and then he has to work for this young buck, up-and-coming guy who started his first company, is successful, and he's able to hire this old guy. It's kind of, you've turned the tables, so to say, on the youth respecting elders. So the youth kind of has this older servant. So you have that kind of disrespecting of the elderly because he has to work for this young guy, but he doesn't have any options at this point. So you have that quandary as well. And also the idea that the rich people, since they got rich right away, they're kind of simple, they're kind of pure in spirit because everything came lucky to them. Whereas the poor family, because they're barely scraping by, they're pulling scams constantly. And so this whole thing is about how they get by pulling scams. So it's really interesting how once you get into poverty, you're kind of stuck at the scam level. And once you rise to the top, then you can kind of be pure in spirit, maybe a simple outlook on life because everything's rolling well for you. And I can kind of agree with that in a way. And there's this buildup of kind of disasters that happens to the poor family, even though they're already in this basement apartment. They're constantly having the family call them out for them being stinky. Maybe they smell the same. They're like, oh, should we wear different shampoos? What the hell is this? And they realize it's just the stench of the apartment is really killing them because they're close to the sewer lines and there's nothing they can do about it, right? So they're kind of like this disgusting labels on them all the time, you know, without the rich family's doing it unknowingly, and the poor family happens to overhear it, right? So they have this kind of build up in the background, as well as their whole basement apartment floods. So there's sewage everywhere. Everything's destroyed. The last vestiges of self-respect are gone. The father had kind of some medals. I think he was in the army or something. And then maybe that's all tarnished. So everything they've kind of had is kind of trashed and lost. They're thrown out on their own. And then the next day they have to go work for this stupid rich family's birthday party and celebrate all the greatness for their birthday party. And so you have this really contrast of how the rain helps the rich family kind of cleans, you know, because they're on a slope, so everything obviously washes downhill. And they're like, oh, this is great. Really cleaned up the lawn's growing well. And the poor family, because of the way the sewer system works, is like they're suffering. So they're, you know, having that further indignity of having, you know, the rain being considered good and then really evil for them. So it's kind of this quandary, how the weather affects rich and poor people. So I think they've done this really great symbolism between the mountain and this basement apartment, showing this kind of classism within Korea, how you really can't get ahead if you don't have those university, the connections to kind of get there, and how these people get stuck at a certain level and they can't rise above it, even though they are really smart. They just can't get above it because all they can do is pull scams at that point because society doesn't let them get ahead. You also realize there's secret in the house about maybe a ghost or something. There's this other secret family, and so you see like these families really struggle. They can't even get, it turns out there's another family, and then they're so burdened by the tax system and all the money they owe that they have to actually hide completely away from sight. So it's kind of like this really drastic sight. Also at the Symbolism House is a famous architect, so there's a symbol of art and a lot of connections to why this house is, you know, the aristocracy, you know. So it has a lot of different layers to the film. It's kind of a simple film, and then at some point there's obviously a little bit of a twist and you're like, what is this, you know? So it has a really nice twist in the end, how the family kind of rises up to be, you know, work with this rich family, and then they come crashing, tumbling down to their old status. So it has kind of that really drama built in, this eternal struggle of the poor family trying to get ahead and really having tough breaks in life. So I would recommend it. It's definitely, I don't know if it's Oscar worthy, but it's definitely a really good film. I would definitely recommend it. If you want to watch more, you can subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you in the next movie review.